The story that's just broken out of the United Kingdom we're going to cover later in the week, and you'll probably see this on other of our shows as well, I suspect nowhere else in mainstream media, and that is about a very liberal left-wing historian in England, a genuine scholar, historian, who made a documentary about Islam. And he had no agenda, but he concluded that, for example, Mecca's only mentioned once in the Quran, that Muhammad is a debatable figure, his existence, and what he really says is that Islam was a growth, a product of the Arabic Empire, rather than vice versa. These are claims that he backs up with historical research. He, of course, has been threatened with death, insulted, abused, may well have to go into hiding. It doesn't surprise me at all. Our next guest, we're going to call him IQ Rassooli. That's not his name. We're just going to say he's in Europe. We're not going to be more specific about his location. He's from the Middle East originally. He's written a trilogy of books about Islam. He has a website, and you will see on Skype he has to disguise himself. Welcome to you, sir. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're from the Middle East originally. You went to study in England after that. When did you change your view so radically about Islam and the Muslim faith?
It took me 30 years of research. I had to study. In Iraq, you didn't have the opportunity to study what you want. But in Europe, I was able to research everything. I could go to museums, I could go to libraries. So I spent literally almost 30 years of researching the subject in Arabic and in English.
It's very different from the West, because in North America, in Europe, probably every 2 or 3 weeks, another book is published condemning Christianity, saying it has no historical basis. And there's even a United Church minister, a so-called Christian minister in Ontario, who writes books like this. But as you know better than others, within the Islamic world, it is virtually impossible to write a book critiquing Islam.
It is forbidden in the Quran to question the Quran. Muhammad made sure that his followers will never question the Quran. And they haven't questioned it for 1400 years. And the people who did question it, in fact, were either murdered or put in prison. May I start?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Can I start about... Let me start.
Okay.
Calling Islam peaceful ranks as one of the most egregious lies that has ever been insinuated into the human consciousness. Islam does not mean peace, because its root verb is aslama, meaning submission. That is submission to the will of one God. Muhammadan Islam is not a religion. It's a cult belief system, the cult of Muhammad. Allah is most definitely not the same as the God of Jesus, Moses, and Abraham, because Allah was only the name of the supreme God of rock, gods of pagan Arabia, among a pantheon of 360 gods and goddesses in stone, centuries before Muhammad and his Quran. By the way, his father, Muhammad's father, was called Abdullah, meaning the slave of Allah. Another item about Islam that people don't know. Jihad is most certainly not a spiritual struggle to commune with God, but eternal war by the followers of Muhammad against all those who do not believe as they do. Currently, that's 80% of humanity. In a nutshell, the greatest threat to human civilization in the 21st century is most assuredly fundamentalist Muhammadan Islam, with or without weapons of mass destruction, as 9/11 and subsequent Islamic acts of terror all over the world have been proving. Let
me ask you a question. Hold on, sir, please, if I may. I am one of those journalists who, with all due humility, has had the courage to step up and say things about Islam that others won't. However, surely the vast majority of individual Muslims have found a way to practice their faith, whether we agree with their faith or not, in a peaceful, gentle way. They do believe that their faith informs everything they do, which is why they are honest and law-abiding. It is surely a small minority who have interpreted Islam to be radical and violent.
That's not true. Anybody who wears the hijab, any female who wears the hijab, any human being who says he's a Muslim must abide by Sharia. Sharia is automatically anti every human being who is not a Muslim. Those who are not strapping bombs on themselves are only being in the minority. Look, in Europe, when the Muslim population became nearly 10%, they have demanded Sharia. In many cities in Europe today, citizens of the countries of Europe cannot go into the Muslim areas. The police cannot go. The ambulances cannot go. They are run by the so-called radical Muslims. There is no such thing as a radical Muslim, Mr. Coren. Sharia is hate-mongering, war-mongering, misogynist, racist, vile, and is totally ungodly. I know what I'm saying sounds outrageous.
Right. No. Hey, I'm allowing you to say it, but I also have to question you. There are areas of Europe that are non-Muslim where the police, when they do go in, will only go in twos and threes as well. It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with social breakdown and drugs and gangs.
Yeah, but that's not true. Because how could they have a Muslim entity in a state which is Christian? I want to know. Where do you find a Christian in any Muslim country who is equal to the Muslims? Mm-hmm. They are murdering Christians in my country. I come from Iraq. Mm. In 2003, we had 1.25 million Christians. Today, as we speak, there are only 200,000. The Copts of Egypt are being exterminated, literally exterminated. If not exterminated, they are forced to leave.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. Hold on. Let me ask you a question here. I agree with you completely that the purge of Christianity, the pogroms, what is happening in Iraq and Syria and Egypt and Pakistan, without doubt. However, some might say to you, look, under Assad, under Saddam Hussein, Christians were protected and lived lives of equality. When the United States and their allies intervened in Iraq, it then opened the doors to all of the fundamentalists who then declared war on Christians. So whose fault is that?
Not at all. Christianity has been under death and destruction for 1,400 years. You know, some people, many Christians say to me, what about the Crusades? Those people who ask this question must be really very stupid people, because the Crusades were the result of 350 years of jihad.
I agree. I wrote an entire chapter about it in one of my books. I agree with that. Let me ask you, because we'll have you back on the show at some point, but let me ask you this to conclude. Are you threatened? Are people warning you about your future, about your safety?
Of course. You should read the emails that I receive. I get 95%, God bless you.
Yeah.
I get 5%, we shall murder you. Every single one of them from a Muslim. Mm. I get, I mean it, 95% support from Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, Jews. The only threats I get are from Muslims. And all I ask from them is to prove me wrong. Mm. Mr. Coren, I have over $1 million worth of challenges to every human being to disprove me. 4 years later, not a penny has been taken.
All right. Well, hey, we should exchange emails at some point, because I can do a bit better in that I can include as well, angry teachers, radical gays, the father. Anyway, listen, a pleasure. I'm sure we'll have a few emails and comments after this interview, but that's not going to stop me or shut me up. Thank you so very much indeed.
God bless you. Thank you very much, sir.